Hi, welcome to the Keilah and Maddy show. I'm Maddy.
I'm Keilah.
And today we're going to be discussing women in the 1940s. We had the pleasure of interviewing a Mrs. Patricia Lustry, a teacher at Northwestern High School for over 50 years. We asked Mrs. Lustry yesterday, as politely as we could, mind you, if she was alive during the 1940s, which she cheerfully replied with, yes, and I'm happy I was and still am. We also asked if she had any information she would be willing to share with us. She supplied us with a decent amount of information and fun stories. Yesterday, we had the pleasure of interviewing Mrs. Lustry, but she wouldn't be able to be here today for our interview, so we wrote down what she said and our questions, and Keilah's going to read as Mrs. Lustry, and I'm going to ask the questions, and Keilah's going to answer our pre-written answers. So we asked Mrs. Lustry how old she was during the 1940s era.
5 or 6. I was just a little thing, always asking questions, not to be annoying. I was just always curious.
We also asked her if she remembered any women going into factories or any non-traditional, non-feminine jobs, like, not teachers, nurses, secretaries, more traditionally men jobs, I guess.
Yeah. And she said that her grandmother was one of the first welders in a shipyard with other women, which mortified her great-grandmother. She was probably one of the first women to smoke and go out with men, other women, to a bar on a Friday night and have a beer with a friend.
Besides your grandmother, were there any other women doing jobs like that? Non-traditionally feminine jobs?
Yes, there were, but because of where she lived, many of them worked as farm wives.
Very hardworking
Yes.
farm wives, she said. We were also wondering, can you think of any products that were really scarce during that time? Like, sugar, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sugar was a really big one. Sugar, butter.
Well, wait. Can't we just make that around here because of all the cow farms and stuff?
Well, yes, but they would have lard. They'd give them lard.
Lard?
Yeah, with like this yellow button type thing in it.
Well, how did they get it?
A lady who drove a truck up to Michigan to get the lard on the black market.
On the black market?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Mrs. Lustry.
And they would be in a bag with a little yellow button, so it would mix yellow dye into the lard, so it would look like butter. Along with the butter, there was flour, fabric, such as nylons, that were scarce.
Yesterday, when she was talking about the fabric, I was like, well, like what kind of fabrics? She said flour would come in these bags, and they'd have like a print on it, and it was like a cotton bag, and they would actually make them into skirts.
Yeah.
So because they'd have a little pattern on them. And she also was talking about nylons. The ladies, her mother, loved her nylons. She said, now you girls are always going just white, bare-legged. But back in the day, they always wore nylons, and there was a shortage of them. So when they heard there'd be a shipment at a store in Superior or wherever, the ladies would just be lining up, just waiting for their nylons. We also thought we should mention that she said there's only 24 pairs that would come in, so they were really hard, and you had to be there lickety split to get it, because you didn't want to be bare-legged. And what they would do if there was a run in their stocking, though, they would use clear nail polish to keep it. So I thought that was kind of cool. Grain was kind of hard to come by too, because it was mostly being made into bread for the soldiers and shipped across the sea or whatever. Now that concludes Mrs. Lustry's interview. She gave us a lot of help, so we really appreciate that from her. And now we're going to be reading some other facts that we found about women in the 1940s that we thought were really cool. So we got this right out of our history textbook. Women would go into defense plants during the Great Depression. Many people thought married women should not work outside the home, especially if they took jobs that could go to men trying to support their families. Most working women were young and single, and just got quote-unquote female jobs like domestic work or teaching or secretaries, nurses, everything traditionally feminine. But because the war there was labor shortages because the men were away. That forced factories to recruit married women for industrial jobs traditionally reserved for women, which I know there's a lot of terrible things because of war, but I think there was also some goods. You know, you have to there's a happy medium, I guess, because women had started getting more jobs, and I think that was a good stepping stone for us for sure, because now women can do just about anything. I think there's women astronauts and whatnot. So Kyla's going to read verbatim from the book, word for word.
Even though the government hired nearly 4 million women, the women working in the factories captured the public's imagination. The most known and famous campaign for hiring women was obviously Rosie the Riveter. After the hype about that, eventually 2.5 million women worked in shipyards, aircrafts, factories, and other manufacturing plants. By the end of the war, the number of working women went from 12.9 million to 18.8.
Wow. That's a lot, actually. That's that's a lot of women. Go ladies.
Working in factories changed the view of many middle-class women. By the end of the war, the number of working women increased. Oh shoot! I already read that. Never mind.
Oh my gosh, Kyla, you always stutter.
Yeah.
You should not be a podcastee.
No.
I don't know what the official term for our job is,
Nope,
but
I suck.
okay, keep reading.
Anyway, I'll start from the beginning of that one. Working in factories changed the view of many middle-class women. Even though a lot of women were laid off or let off their jobs after the war, and the men came back to take their jobs, the women's success permanently changed America's attitudes and views on women in the workplace.
Yeah.
So that was a plus. So that's this was all during World War II. And even though that was such a horrible thing, it also brings in, it's a good thing for women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Get where we are.
Yeah. I mean, you
Everything
have to kind of find the good in everything.
Yeah,
There's
everything
always a
happens
happy
for a
medium. Yeah, everything happens for a reason, for sure. I actually remember when I was, younger, and no shame, I probably watched this, a few years ago, Molly, an American Girl. She grew up in the 1940s, and her dad went away to be, an army doctor, and her mom had to work in a factory and, help build planes. And I remember that actually kind of impacted me. It did. I was like, whoa. You go.
Those American Girl dolls.
Yeah, there was the dolls. Okay, that was cool. I was a cool kid. So we're going to probably conclude our podcast now. Thank you for listening to us babble and tuning into our show today. We hope you somewhat enjoyed it and didn't fall asleep during it. Now you can hopefully appreciate all the women who came before us and, paved our road to equal rights, which we're still fighting for.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Thanks.